WWE are set to present yet another Saturday night's main event special this Saturday, and now it's time to boldly predict what wrestlers will come out victorious. Will there be any shocking title changes? Could anybody make a shocking return? Join us now as WrestleMania looks at all the winners and losers of Saturday night's main event special. First match is CM Punk and Sami Zayn versus Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker. And WWE have done a mostly stellar job in building the first steps in the Seth Rollins, Bron Breakker and Paul Heyman alliance. The group's antics have been the highlight of Raw, and now Rollins and Breakker will team up for the first time since their initial formation. There have been calls to see the duo debut a new theme song that acts as their primary theme song for the group. Currently, they still feel like two individuals and they need some type of cohesion when it comes to their presentation. When legendary faction Evolution formed, the Line in the Sand theme song was a big part of their presentation. The theme song made them stand out, so WWE definitely need to look at this element. But when it comes to the match itself, the duo will team against CM Punk and Sami Zayn. And on paper, it's inevitable that Rollins and Breakker secure the win. Zayn is likely in the match to take the pinfall loss. However, is this the match in which WWE pulls the rumored swerve? There have been rumors for months that Zayn is going to turn to the dark side once more and align with Heyman's new faction. Even on Raw this week, fans were looking into Zayn's insistence on loyalty, and there is a strong portion of the audience that firmly believes that Zayn is turning heel. If this occurs, it would only mean that Zayn turns on Punk in the match, and then WWE spins off into a Zayn vs Punk feud. The whole idea of Zayn turning heel seems like a bad move. Zayn is super popular as a babyface, and turning him heel for the sake of it seems like a very silly idea. If WWE are going to add another member to the alliance, then they should be looking at making a new star, and potentially debuting a big star from NXT such as Femi or even Ethan Page. One key wrestler involved in this story arc is Roman Reigns, and according to reports, Reigns is set to return to WWE programming next month. Reigns still has unfinished business with both Rollins and Breakker, and a tag team encounter pitting Reigns and Punk versus Rollins and Breakker is very likely. If this occurs at Money in the Bank, it will allow Punk to go into a new direction, as fans have been urging WWE to move Punk away from Rollins. Punk has been in the feud with Rollins since late 2024, and it's definitely time to do something new. Punk is a name that would massively benefit from a change of scenery, and Punk moving to SmackDown in the upcoming WWE draft isn't the worst idea in the world. SmackDown is in dire need of a top full-time babyface, and Punk certainly fits the bill. WWE could look to move the new Heyman alliance over to SmackDown, but with SmackDown ditching the extra hour relatively soon, it makes more sense to keep him on the Red brand, at least for now. In relation to Reigns, this return will naturally lead to a final showdown between him and Rollins. With SummerSlam being a two-night event this year, WWE needs to stack the show as much as possible, and the final encounter between the two men would be a fitting match for the two-night extravaganza. Our prediction? Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker win. Next up is Drew McIntyre vs Damian Priest in a steel cage match. The WWE are bringing back the cage match for Saturday night's main event, as Drew McIntyre will take on Damian Priest. A lot of fans were under the impression that the feud wrapped up at WrestleMania 41, however, with WWE doing yet another angle between the two men at Backlash, it was inevitably set to continue, and this match should really act as the final match in the series. However, there have been calls on social media for Priest to get the win and for the two to have one final blow-off match at Money in the Bank. Now, the steel cage would be a fitting way to give Priest a win, as they could easily protect McIntyre by having Priest escape the cage first, and McIntyre can avoid taking a pinfall loss. But this feud has somewhat been the surprise feud of 2025 so far. Initially, when the two started feuding, there was a lot of disappointment that McIntyre wasn't in the main event world title picture again. However, the two have clicked in recent months, and their WrestleMania encounter was one of the most solid and consistent matches across the entire weekend. Now, all signs point to Priest getting the W here, which would even the series at 1-1. Another stipulation match is probable for the final match between the two, and a gimmick match such as a last man standing match or even an ambulance match would be welcome booking calls from WWE. Our prediction though, Damian Priest wins via escaping the cage. Next up, John Cena vs R-Truth in a non-title match. Now, it came as a huge surprise that John Cena vs R-Truth wasn't being presented in the main event slot of the show. The entire promotion for the event, including the promotional poster, featured Cena, and all signs pointed towards the match being the main event of the show. It's possible that WWE didn't want to present the world title and Jey Uso as inferior, as Jey failing to main event over a non-title match isn't the best look for his reign. In doing this, Triple H showed the fans that the world title matters, and that main event Jay deserves to be in the main event slot of these shows. Cena vs Truth is an interesting match on paper. The natural idea is that Truth will hopefully beat sense into Cena and could make him realize the error of his ways. The issue is that Truth hasn't been presented as a moderate threat on WWE television in a very long time, so there's no way that fans can take the idea of Cena losing to Truth seriously. This is likely why the match isn't being presented as a WWE title match. Now, there are some theories from fans online that Cody Rhodes could return during the match, and if Rhodes returns during the match itself, it's entirely possible that Rhodes cost Cena the match. However, Cena losing to Truth probably isn't the smartest idea in the world. Cena needs protecting as much as humanly possible during his final run, and him losing a non-title match on a glorified TV special won't do him any favors. It would make more sense for Rhodes to return in the post-match angle, perhaps when Cena's delivering a vicious beatdown on Truth. This would then set up Rhodes and Cena's rumored tag match for Money in the Bank and their subsequent one-on-one rematch at SummerSlam in August. Therefore, it's likely that Cena comes out with the W. The question is whether the two have a back-and-forth contest. It makes sense for the match to be an outright squash, however fans in attendance may be disappointed if the match ends in a very quick manner. WWE needs to urgently decide what these Saturday night main event shows are supposed to be. Are they glorified TV specials, or are they events that fans should take seriously, and are they as big as premium live events? It's rumored that Cena's final match will take place at a Saturday night's main event in Boston in December, and if this is indeed the case, WWE has a lot of work to do to make these shows feel important, as a lot of the fans are already questioning why on earth such a monumental match is taking place in an event WWE evidently don't care about. But our prediction, John Cena defeats R-Truth. And now it's time for the main event of the show, Jey Uso vs Logan Paul for the World Heavyweight title. Jey Uso is set to defend his world title at Saturday night's main event against WWE's Maverick Logan Paul. There's been extensive criticism directed towards the booking of this match, as a lot of the fans are concerned about the quality. However, with Jey being one of the most over stars of the modern era, and Paul being loathed by the audience, the dynamic should make up for any in-ring mismatches. There's no way that the world title changes hands at a show like this, but WWE is so high on Paul that there is a distinct possibility that Paul could win the big one. The more likely option is that Jey wins and Paul moves on to the Money in the Bank ladder match in 2 weeks so he can perform a big spot. But there's also the Gunther factor. Gunther has challenged the winner of the Jey vs Paul for June 9th, and based on the build on TV, WWE are making it blatantly obvious that this is going to be Jey vs Gunther in a WrestleMania rematch. There are rumors that this will be the match that will see Goldberg return to WWE programming, and in turn, the Goldberg retirement story arc will then commence once Jey finally moves on from the ring general. It's unclear what's next for Jey, as the rumored WWE draft will be interesting, as he's a name that could potentially benefit from switching shows. There are an array of heels from both brands for Jey to face on featured PLEs, including Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre. When it comes to the latter, Jey vs McIntyre seems like an obvious SummerSlam match, as there is so much history there, and Jey dropping the world title to McIntyre would give Jey a lengthy reign as world champion, and hopefully that will appease his fans. On the go-home edition of Raw, the match was confirmed to be the main event of the show, and this also indicates that Jey retains. WWE could also easily use the main event slot to build Jey's next challenger, and it wouldn't be a shock to see the show close out with Gunther ambushing Jey and posing with the world title. But our final prediction, Jey Uso retains the world title.